Om. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryandam Vande Guru Parampara. Oh, so we were forced to cancel our classes and for practically 1 month there was no classes. Before that, we just started Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1. I think we have seen that first shloka. First shloka we are completed now.
I don't think, Swamiji, we have completed it.
Yeah. So the first shloka is a question of Dhritarashtra. And Bhagavad Gita starts with the question of Dhritarashtra. There was a contract in between Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya. After getting the divine vision from Vyasa, Sanjaya could see everything, all the happenings in the Kurukshetra. And the contract was, he would explain everything to Dhritarashtra. But he came to Dhritarashtra after 10 long days and just informed him. Bhishma has fallen. It was a shock to Dhritarashtra. Not only to Dhritarashtra, but to everybody, it was a shock. And Dhritarashtra wept for some time. He became unconscious. And after that, he asked, "Oh Sanjaya, you explain what happened there." With that query, this Bhagavad Gita begins. Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta mamaka pandavaschaiva kima kurvata Sanjaya. Oh Sanjaya, Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre. Dharmakshetre means in the Dharmakshetra. Kurukshetra means in the Kurukshetra. So when we join this in Kurukshetra, which is Dharmakshetra. Why and how it is Dharmakshetra? It is such a great place of pilgrimage. And Kurukshetra is considered as a holy place even before Mahabharata war. We can see in the Jabali Upanishad, Kurukshetram vai devanam deva yajanam sarvesham bhutanam brahma sadanam. It says Kurukshetra is a place for all the devatas to perform yagas. Even for devatas, it's such a holy place. It's a place for performing yaga. And Sarvesham Bhutanam Brahma Sadana is a place for all beings. It is the road to Brahmaloka, the highest celestial world. So even before Mahabharata war, it was considered as such a holy place. And there is one more reason. The Emperor Kuru, who established the Kuru Vamsha, the Kuru's clan, or we can say in whose name Kuru Vamsha was established, he himself went to this place to cultivate dharma. To cultivate dharma. And he plowed the land and sowed the seed to grow dharma. And therefore, the name Dharmakshetra, it came. So Kurukshetra is a Dharmakshetra. And now, two groups, both Pandavas and Dhartarashtras, are fighting to establish Dharma. So they selected this land, this battlefield, for establishing or re-establishing Dharma. And therefore, this is Dharmakshetra. So in this Dharmakshetra, which is called Kurukshetra, Samavetaha, those who are assembled, Samavetaha, it is a plural form, Samavetaha, Samavetaha, it is the plural. Those who are assembled. How? Yuyutsavaha. The word meaning is wishing to fight or desirous of fighting. Wishing to fight. We can take so. Yuyutsavaha. Yodhum Ichchavaha. Yodhum Ichchavaha. Those who are wishing to fight. Desirous of fighting. Who they are? Mamaka, my people. That is my children and their people. Pandavaha, the side of Pandu. That is children of Pandu and their people. Mamakaha Pandavaha. See, this is the starting point of all the battles in this world. Mamakaha Pandavaha. This manifested in the mind will make wars in many forms. Not that everybody will pick weapons and fight. Many types of fightings are there. And this is the starting point. Mamakaha Pandavaha. My people and people who are not mine. Who are my people? I'm saying my wife, my husband, my this, my that, my son, my daughter. So many mice are there. All these are taken for granted. And therefore this world is moving. Just to make this world move, we are assuming. That's all. There begins and there ends everything. So Mamakaha Pandavaha. Kim Akurvata? Akurvata did. Kim Akurvata, what they did? Great scholars like Swami Shankarananda. He was a great scholar and his commentary is considered as the best after Shankara Bhashya in the Advaita Parampara. He was such a great scholar. But at the same time, this view which he is writing, we cannot accept. I cannot accept personally. The view he is explaining is Kurukshetra is such a holy place. And so when coming there at such a holy place, there will be much changes in the mindsets of people. And there are two chances. One, my son Duryodhana is not just, he's not a righteous man. He's against dharma. But reaching this place, sometimes there is a chance for a change in Duryodhana. That is one chance. Another chance is Dharmaputra Yudhishthira is a man of dharma, but still they were pulled to fight. They were forced to fight. They tried their sama, they tried their dana, they tried their bheda, and only after seeing all this, after realizing there is no other way, they came for fighting. So even after that, being a man of virtue, being a man of values, still more change may happen. He may think, for what these fights and all? So we can go back. Forest is the best dwelling place for us. So we can go back. So there are two chances. One, Duryodhana becoming a righteous man, or Dharmaputra becoming a model Hindu of the present day. So in both these cases, fight will not happen. So keeping this in mind, Dhritarashtra asked such a question, what did they do? This is the commentary, or this is the view proposed by Shankarananda Swami. But we cannot accept that. Why? Because this question came on the 10th day, not on the first day. This is on the 10th day. And everybody in the world knows fight is going on there. Battles is going on. So many people died. Exact details, Dhritarashtra do not know. That is true. But still, it's a plain fact that battle is happening there. Then such a question will not come. So what's the sense of the question? It is this. You came and declared Bhishma has fallen. It is not good for you. So you explain from the very beginning what happened. I am expecting a running commentary from you instead of saying this. So tell that, begin that. What happened? So this is the question. So with this question, Bhagavad Gita starts. So hearing this, Sanjaya, he replies. Sanjaya uvacha drishtva tu pandavanikam vyudham duryodhanastada acharyam upasangamya raja vachanam abravit. Sanjaya uvacha drishtva tu pandavanikam vyudham duryodhanastada acharyam upasangamya raja vachanam abravit. Sanjaya uvacha. Sanjaya said. Uvacha said. What did he say? Drishtva tu pandavanikam. Drishtva, having seen, or after seeing. Drishtva, having seen. Tu, we need not ascribe any specific meaning for that. Tu. So drishtva tu pandavanikam. Anikam is army. So Pandavanikam is the army of Pandavas. Vyudham. Vyudham. Well arranged in the military formation. Vyudham. Well arranged. How? In the military formation. In the army formation. So there are many types of formations. Each day they will change, and even within one day they will change the formations. So Pandavanikam is Vyudham, well arranged. Duryodhana, your son. Tada, then. Acharyam upasangamya, approaching, or having approached, or after approaching, upasangamya, after approaching. Acharyam, the acharya, the teacher. Here Dronacharya is the teacher. He is the acharya. Raja, the king. Vachanam. Vachanam is these words. Abravid, said. So the meaning of the shloka is, after seeing the well-arranged army of Pandavas, Duryodhana, the king, approached Acharya, Dronacharya, and said, this is the meaning. Here, what is indicated is, Duryodhana is a Yuva Raja. Actually, they are not Yuva. He may be 80 or more years. Sri Krishna's age was 99 at the time of Kurukshetra war. Not the 99 of present day. We cannot imagine that. And Sri Krishna lived up to 125 years. And so Duryodhana will be around 85, 90 like that. I don't know the actual age. We have to go to Mahabharata and see whether there is exact descriptions. But however, that will be the age. But still there was Dhritarashtra on the as the king, in the position of the king, Dhritarashtra is there. So the indicated meaning here is, you are sitting as a king, but actually Duryodhana is the king. Duryodhana is the king. You are considering yourself as the king, but actually it is not correct. Duryodhana is the king. So King Duryodhana, he approached Acharya, Dronacharya, Upasangamya, Abravid. He said, what did he say? Here we need not explain. There is nothing to explain here. The only point is, Pandava's army is well arranged. Vyudham. That is the only thing to note here. So what did he say? Pashyaitam Panduputranam Acharya Mahatim Chamom Vyudham Drupada Putrena Tava Shishyena Dhimata. Pashyaitam Panduputranam Acharya Mahatim Chamom Vyudham Drupada Putrena Tava Shishyena Dhimata. O Acharya, Pashya Etam Mahatim Chamom Panduputranam Mahatim Chamom Vyudham Drupada Putrena Tava Shishyena Dhimata. O Acharya, Pashya, behold. You please behold. Mahatim Chamom, the great army. Mahatim Chamu. Chamu is army. Mahati, great. Chamu is feminine. So Mahatim. Mahatim Chamu. The great army, you please behold that. Whose great army? Not ours. Panduputranam. The great army of Pandavas. You please see that. And what is special to note there? Vyudham Drupada Putrena. It is well organized or well arranged by Drupada Putra, the son of Drupada. And who is that? Tava Shishyena, by your disciple. By your disciple. You are in this side, and your Dhimata, very intelligent disciple, is there. He is arranging, he is organizing everything. So there is a potential danger in that. Number one, he is very intelligent. Dhiman. Dhiman is intelligent man. And he is your disciple. An intelligent disciple will understand the ways of a teacher, how he will act, what will be the mode of action. Everything a disciple will realize if he is intelligent. So this Drishtadyumna, the son of Drupada, is very intelligent man, and he is your disciple. You are such a fool to teach Drishtadyumna. Why? Because Drupada was having only one aim in this life. With that vow, he lived. And what was that? Killing Drona. That was the only aim Drupada had. And for that, he prayed for such a son who can kill Drona. He did yajnas for that. And that Drupada's son, Drishtadyumna, when he came as a student, you accepted him. And you taught him. What a foolishness this is. See, one of the great commentator of Bhagavad Gita and the greatest scholar Bharata has ever produced, Swami Madhusudana Saraswati. We must remember Madhusudana Saraswati always. Because of him, we are living now as Hindus. That Madhusudana Saraswati, he wrote a detailed commentary on Bhagavad Gita. And while writing, he says, Duryodhana is calling Drona as Panduputranam Acharya. We saw this sloka as Panduputranam Mahatim Chamum Pasya. Please behold the mighty army of Pandavas. That is the way we learned. But Madhusudana Saraswati writes, Oh Panduputra Namacharya, you are a teacher of Pandavas. Now you are in my side. You are working for me. You are a leader of a huge army of my side. All these are correct, true. But at the same time, in the heart of heart, you are the teacher of Pandavas. That was true also. Because when, see, on the first day, before the commencement of actual battle, from Pandava's side, Yudhishthira got down from the chariot, followed by Bhima, followed by Arjuna, Nakula and Sahadeva. So all the people in that battlefield were astonished. What is going to happen? So everybody is getting ready for battle, and now this man followed by his brothers, are getting down from the chariot. Where they are going, what they are going to do. So Dharmaputra, Yudhishthira, he walked to the other side, to the enemy side, without heeding anybody else. He directly went to Bhishma and prostrated there and asked for blessing. You please bless us. Then Bhishma said, you know, everybody in this world are slaves of money. Money is not at all a slave of anybody. And so I am working with Duryodhana. So it was better you came here and prostrated. Otherwise, I would have made you ashes. And after getting that blessing from Bhishma, so after that, Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, everybody prostrated. And then Dhritarashtra straight away he went to Dronacharya. Again he prostrated there, asked for blessings. Then Drona repeated the same thing, the same words. Arthasya dasa sarvepi nartho daso hi kasyachita. Sarvepi, everybody in this world, are arthasya dasaha, slaves of money. Nartho daso hi kasyachit. Money is not at all a slave. And therefore, I am here in this site. Because Duryodhana is looking after us. We are obliged to him. He is the king. He is the powerful man. He is having money. So we are with him. Plainly they said, you see. So, you are with us, we know that, but in the heart of heart, you are with the Pandavas. So this is the inner meaning. Panduputranam Acharya. So Panduputranam Acharya, Pashya Mahatim Chamum. Etam Mahatim Chamum. You please behold this great army of Pandavas. Vyutham Drupada Putrena, it is well arranged by Drupada Putra Drishtadimna, who is your disciple and a very intelligent man by himself. Dhimata, by the intelligent man. Dhimata, Dhiman is intelligent man. Dhimata is by the intelligent man. It is the third case. So this is the second shloka. That is the third shloka in the first chapter. What follows we can see in our next satsanga. So if you want to ask anything for some time, you can ask. Then we will conclude today and continue in our next sitting.
We have a question from Anjali ji. So Anjali ji, you can unmute yourself and ask that question. Are you still there?
Namaste, Swamiji.
Namaste.
This is in chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita. verses 37 and 38, wherein Arjuna asks Bhagavan, Ayate Shraddhayopeto Yoga Chalita Manasa Aprapya Yoga Samsiddhim Kam Gatim Krishna Gachati. So the next shloka is where I have the doubt, wherein it says, Kachin Nobhaya Vibhrashtash Chinnabhram Iva Nashyati Apratishto Mahabaho Vimudho Brahmana Pathe. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Mahabaho is always used to refer to Arjuna. Krishna refers to Arjuna as Mahabaho, but in this it is not clear whether it is Sri Krishna who's saying it or is it Arjuna who's saying it. At least it's not clear to me. So please explain that.
That is the question from Arjuna. That's a question from Arjuna, and Sri Krishna is referred there. See, the meaning of Mahabahu is one with mighty arms.
Yeah.
Sri Krishna was a Mahabahu.
Yes.
Arjuna was a Mahabahu. And Dharmaputra was a Mahabahu. Yudhishthira was a Mahabahu. Bhima was a Mahabahu. And when addressing mighty warriors, great soldiers, and great kings and emperors, with respect also, people used to call them Mahabahu.
Okay.
So the meaning of Mahabahu is this much only, one with mighty arms, long arms. So here Arjuna is calling Sri Krishna Mahabahu. What happens to him? Ayati Shraddhayopetaha. He had full faith within. And of course, having the knowledge of Shastra also. But somehow, he is failing or he is falling from the path of sadhana. So what will happen to him? This was the question. And this comes in the 6th chapter. Yeah.
Okay. My doubt was about the term Mahabahu.
Yeah, I got it. I got it.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you.
Namaste. Namaste.
Namaste.
So there is a question like, in the Bhagavad Gita, especially in the Mahabharata itself, the Pandavas and Kauravas are portrayed as the, what do you call, like, there's a contest, there's a continuing war within our mindset. Like, you can simplify and saying it that between the fight between good and bad, and the continuous confrontation between the good emotions or good thoughts, good deeds, bad things. Eventually, it is always getting struggled in everyone's mind, I believe. So do we need to feel that a struggle is happening within yourself all the time, or you need to carry over that stress of the fight within yourself, or you can live within peace with that two ways of emotions and two spectrum of emotion within yourself? That is a question.
See, always this war is there. Within each individual, within each and every society, this war is going on. Because in the very creation itself, there are two types of what you can call forces or types of energy or manifestations. What are these two? Dvau bhuta sargau lokesmin daiva asura evacho. Dvau bhuta sargau. Two types of creation are there. They are Daiva and Asura. Daiva Asura Evacha. One is Daiva. We can roughly translate as divine, and asura evacha, we can roughly translate as demonic. These two are there. Just observe. Always we are looking outside and evaluating others. Very good. But look inside. And we will realize the two types of powers are there. Whenever we are going to do anything what is considered by ourselves as good and divine, there is a power, there is a force within which is attracting us towards that. And there is a power, there is a person within us who is blocking that. Always these two presence we can feel within us. And whenever we are going to do something which we know we are not supposed to do, it is not good for us to do that. But still, with some attractions or with somehow we are going to do, then there is a fire, there is a power which is blocking that. No, you must not. And at the same time, there is from another side some power, some force, some person who is pulling. Do that. What is wrong in that? You can do, or you must do. So these two forces are always there within each and every individual. In the same way, in the society also, these two forces are there. So always there is a fight between these two. And normally, there is an equilibrium, there is a balance. So when that balance is disrupted, when that equilibrium has gone, then there will be problems. Whether be in the inside a person or in the society or nations or the world, there will be problem. So to correct that, effort must be taken. When we take the macrocosm, it is at this juncture avatars are coming to re-establish that equilibrium. But in the case of a person, avatara must come from within. And what is that avatara? It is the avatara of knowledge. It is knowledge. Or we can say the correct attitude towards life. The spirit of an observer. If we can inculcate that spirit of an observer, because these two forces are there and they are playing. If we can be an observer, that is one attitude. Or making our intellectual capacity higher and higher. Then the emotional quotient that will go down. Emotions must be there. Without emotions, we are not walls or stones. But emotion must be under the control of the intellect. There must be a balance. There must be an equilibrium. So always this Mahabharata battle is happening within. Good and bad. See, these are relative terms. Good and bad. These are purely relative terms. In the absolute sense, there is no good, there is no bad. All these are relative terms. But as long as we are in the relative world, good and bad will be there. So this battle is there. Always it is happening there. And Krishna is there, the teacher. Arjuna is there, the bewildered mind, fully confused what to do, how to do. Then Krishna is their teacher. Go to the teacher, hear from him. That is the only way. If there is no confusion, then there is no need for going to Krishna. But there are confusions. We can hide. We can hide. There is no use in hiding, because it will develop into so many what we can call personality problems, many type of depressions, anxieties, this, that. So if there is no confusion, there is no problem. But if there is confusion, we have to approach teacher. But approaching a teacher means we must get rid of our own ego and our own conclusions. If we are going to a teacher with our own conclusions, then what is the use in going to a teacher? It will make another one. That is the problem. It will make another one. That will go on and on. So there are two ways. Sit with the content and be satisfied within. Or if there is a confusion and we recognize that, then approach a teacher. So if we are taking this course, that is approaching a teacher, then the first thing we have to do is get rid of our own ego's conclusions. Otherwise, we will superimpose our own identity to the teacher. He said so. It may be something he didn't even imagine. That will happen. So always this war is there and war will be there. We have to live within this. We cannot go away from this war. Wherever we go, this will follow. No, I cannot live with this war. I am going to forest. With what we are going? With our mind, with our intellect, with our body, with our senses. So it will follow. If we are above the instruments, then there is no war. That is the state of an observer. He is seeing everything. He is enjoying everything. I don't like anybody coming and hitting me. But I can enjoy stunts in the films. I can enjoy that. And I am enjoying. I will enjoy, there is no doubt in that. While seeing a film, I will enjoy that. But I don't like somebody coming and hitting me. So as an observer, I can see this war. That is one course. And if I cannot, there will be confusion. And if there is confusion, we must approach Sri Krishna. This must be our attitude towards life. This is the way how we have to approach life. Namaste.
So if you have time, I have questions from Praveen ji also. Praveen ji.
Namaste, Swamiji.
Namaste, namaste.
So my question is related to, at one point during your satsang, you had said that, Yudhishthira had the option to go back to the forest just like in the current day, some people might do. So my question is around that. So let's say in our daily life, in our neighborhood or at our workplace, we sometimes don't know whether, I mean, we cannot use our viveka to determine what is the right course of action, like whether it is to retaliate against some wrongdoing against us, or whether to take the more pleasant approach of not doing anything about it, or rationalizing with ourselves, saying, okay, by doing this, I might look bad in the eyes of the other person, or it might blow up the conflict, or it might result in an emotional explosion, etc. And you keep quiet. So that is one aspect of viveka which you need to bring into that situation. The second thing is about your comfort zone of whether even after knowing what is the right thing to do, or if you are at least if you have a sense of what is to be done, but still you are unable to do it because of your upbringing or whatever, call it comfort zone. And the third is not at all knowing whether which is the right course of action. Like, for example, in the case of Arjuna, he had Sri Krishna to advise him. But in that particular situation, I mean, how do we, let's say retaliation is the right course of action, but for some reason you're unable to take it, or it could prove to be very unpleasant. At that moment, how do we get over that, our normal urge to keep quiet and be submissive? So that is my question.
Yeah. In the workplaces, in families, in the society, such situation, always they are coming. And we have to decide. We have to decide our own course of action. And see, we must have that equilibrium or that equanimity within. The equanimity within we must have. We must keep that. We must not allow anybody to come inside and make ourselves disturbed. There must be a door. That is one aspect. Another aspect is, when we are in the society, we are working, we have responsibilities, duties, and positions, and we have to maintain them all, then we must not be humiliated, or we must not allow ourselves to be humiliated by others. See, the term retaliation is not correct. Instead of reacting, instead of retaliating, we can make response. And it must be apt and correct. And the response must be in a language which he will understand. See, there is nothing greatness in chanting some mantras to one who is coming with a sword in hand to kill us. No. We have to stop him. And there is nothing great or greatness. No greatness is there in making ourselves artificially meek. I'm not doing anything. I'm a poor fellow. If I am reacting outwardly just like him, it is not good. And suffering is good for me because I am a Hindu. It is not good. We cannot accept that view. I cannot accept. Inside our mind must be kept unperturbed, undisturbed. In that calmness we have to keep within, but outwardly we have to show our response. It is not something reacting or retaliating. This we must do. Ma manusmara yudhyacha. It was the teaching given to Arjuna. Why? He was in the battlefield. We are in different type of battlefield. So the same teaching is for us also. But the way yudhyacha, to fight, is different. We need not take a knife and sword or a gun. But we can say, this is not correct for you. This is not the right way for you. And suffering, making ourselves suffer, and taking all burden from the outer society, and in turn becoming depressed, is not the dharmic way. But see, somehow we are becoming so. Somehow, I don't know how, because of the influence of, or after the influence of Buddhist philosophies, suffering, suffering, suffering. It has become the mantra. No, you must not give suffering to others. At the same time, you must not allow others to make you suffer. This must be the way. This must be the way. And so instead of reacting, we must respond. Response must be in a language which he will understand. That is the main thing. Sometimes we will have to shout. Sometimes we will have to keep mum. Sometimes a smile will be more powerful than a sword or gun. So it depends on the situation, the person, many things. So this is the main thing. Inwardly, we must keep our equanimity inside. But outside, we have to show the correct reply in the correct wavelength. Otherwise, we will have to suffer. Because if you are allowing yourself to be pulled down by your co-worker, considering that is the right way, that is the dharmic way, then others also will come. Others also will come. Just stand up and face the brute. That we must do. And sometimes this facing the brute means not with weapon, not with a knife or sword or gun. Sometimes a smile will be more powerful. It depends on situation and persons. So that is the answer. Namaste. Namaste. I think today we can conclude this, and next week we can continue. Om Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.